Since the tragic shootings in Connecticut, one group has proposed deploying armed guards in school. Another has called for principals and teachers to be armed. I spoke with Robyn Thomas, Executive Director of the Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence, and asked her for her views on these controversial proposals.
Well, I think there is an interesting difference between suggestions that play on fear and that are emotional responses versus the kinds of solutions that we actually know will have an impact and we know that will protect our children, our schools, and also the rest of our communities. It's not just about wanting to protect our children, which is absolutely the most important thing, but it's also about the kinds of change that will impact, this problem across the board. Unfortunately, there's absolutely no evidence to suggest that arming teachers or principals is going to make a difference. At the Columbine shooting in 1989, there were actually 2 armed guards at the school that day, and that didn't stop the shooters. So I think, unfortunately, it's not the kind of solution that we need. It's not what law enforcement wants. It's not what teachers want. And it's not what parents want.
Right. There also seems to be very deep political divisions over this particular issue. I mean, every time there is a suggestion that, that there be new laws or even creating a register of people who own guns. I mean, there are 300 million guns in the United States. Nobody knows who owns them. The gun right advocates are quick to point out that you're trampling on their Second Amendment rights. Those are the rights that give Americans the right to bear arms, that it's, you're violating the Constitution. So I guess the question is, how does one protect, that constitutional right with meaningful new laws?
Well, it's interesting. The Supreme Court has actually spoken and told us exactly what the Second Amendment means. And what they've said is that it does protect a right for you to own a gun in your home for self-defense. And so that basic right is going to be protected. Nothing's going to be done to infringe on that particular definition of your Second Amendment rights. However, there is a lot that we can do that fall far away from that. Things like universal background checks on all gun sales, banning assault weapons and these large capacity ammunition magazines that are often used in these terrible shootings. Those kinds of laws and regulations wouldn't do anything to infringe on individual Second Amendment rights, but could go a long way to preventing future tragedies like the one we saw 2 weeks ago. So the question is not whether or not this political divide is there. It's fine, we acknowledge it's there. The question is what works and is fair, and can we all agree is a common sense, effective solution.
Are you optimistic that there will be new laws, there will be changes that will come about soon?
I'm extremely optimistic. I think if you read the opinion polls that have been done in the last few weeks, there's been quite a dramatic shift in American support for some initial basic gun regulations, the ones I mentioned before, banning assault weapons, banning large capacity ammunition magazines, and creating a universal background check system where all sales and transfers of guns include a background check, which is already the case for gun dealers, but about 40% of gun sales aren't included that are done through gun shows or private hands. So I do believe both of those types of legislation are going to be introduced at the federal level, and I think both pieces of legislation have a really good chance of getting through, and it's long past time that we do that.
Robyn Thomas, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.